Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our awesome admins joining from all over the world. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to learn more about how admins can take their organizations to the next level and learn best practices for maximizing your user experience and championing productivity with Service Cloud. My name is Leanne Reimel. I'm your trusty admin evangelist, and if you're on the Twitters, you can find me at Leandroid. I'm thrilled to be joined today by our amazing Service Cloud team, Senior Product Manager Vince Pham and Senior Product Marketing Manager Purvi Desai. Thank you both so much for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Yep, me too.
So during our webinars, we may mention upcoming features and functionality not yet released. As always, please make all of your purchasing decisions regarding Salesforce based on our currently available technologies and not any forward-looking statements we may make. Salesforce Admins is a really social team. We love connecting with our awesome admin community. You can find us on the Twitters at Salesforce Admins, there is no I in admin, or with the hashtag AwesomeAdmin. If Twitter is not your thing, we also share updates, webinars, news on Facebook and LinkedIn, and all of our videos can be found on our YouTube channel, so make sure to subscribe, including this video. So this video will be recorded, this webinar will be recorded, as are all of our Salesforce admin webinars. So if you want to rewatch this webinar, go back through some of the amazing demos we're going to see, or if you have to step away from your computer, the recording and slides will be posted to admin.salesforce.com, and the recording will also be available on our YouTube channel. So if you have fellow admins who want to tune in, make sure to direct them to that recording. So today we're going to be drilling into a lot of topics around how admins can take advantage of Service Cloud features, and that means you might have some questions. We hope you have questions about the features or information that we're covering. So our awesome admin team, or awesome team of experts, will be answering questions on the Trailblazer community group, admin webinar group, that can be found at this bit.ly, and time provided, we'll take some of those questions at the end of this webinar. We won't be leaving any question left behind, so if we don't get to your question during the live webinar, we will be following up on questions in that community group after we end the broadcast. So what can you expect over the next 27 minutes or so? We'll be introducing how admins can think about building solutions for different types of users and personas in their Service Cloud user groups, how you can get hands-on with some key features. We'll also be learning about Service Console best practices and how you can help your users be productive with macros. We'll be finishing up with important resources so you can continue blazing trails with Service Cloud, and hopefully have time to take some questions from our Trailblazer community group that we mentioned. So let's get started. Purvi, take it away.
Great, thanks, Leanne. So as Leanne mentioned, we have an action-packed agenda for you today. But before we dive into that, let's talk about Service Cloud. Many of you might have already been administering Service Cloud and you're not aware. If you work with objects like cases and knowledge or use features like macros and entitlements, congratulations, you're a Service Cloud admin. And as a Service Cloud admin, you wear many hats. You're essentially a product manager, from gathering requirements to configuration to implementation roadmap. But today, we're going to focus on a particular piece of your job, the user experience. And at Salesforce, we have a UX team dedicated to ensuring that users have the most optimal experience when interacting with our products. And we drive those experiences with our core service personas. We identified our service personas by conducting a research study with many of our customers across location, business size, and industries. And we first asked how often they perform 9 core tasks, then ran a factor analysis to understand which of those tasks tend to occur together, and emerged our 4 service personas. And here they are. One of them on the far right looks pretty familiar, doesn't it? Well, I think you all are probably familiar with yourselves, so let's dive into the other 3. And if you want to learn more about our personas, they're on Trailhead. Okay, our first persona are case solvers. Case solvers spend a lot of time in Salesforce and mostly support customers on channels like phone, email, and chat. They're significantly more likely to support short, moderate, and ongoing customer interactions. So they need to get the information they need, like upfront. That's very important for them. Next are our expert agents. They have more specialized knowledge and typically support ongoing cases over non-real-time channels. They collaborate with and support case solvers, typically taking over escalated cases for them. In addition, they're the main contributors to the knowledge base, ensuring case solvers have the most up-to-date and relevant information to help them solve cases. And lastly, our team leaders. Their main focus is to help their teams be more successful and ensure they're on target. Reporting is critical for them to track performance and identify issues quickly. So given the traits of these personas, how can you build optimal experiences for them? Well, there's a few things that we think, three main things you need to keep in mind. First, customize. One size definitely does not fit all here. Second, give them the information they need to dive into that case as quickly as possible, up front and center. And lastly, give your agents context, all the clues they need to solve the case in one screen. So let's unpack these best practices a little bit more. Okay, customization. As we discussed, different personas have very different goals and day-to-day tasks and need tailored experiences in order for them to be as efficient as possible. And you can create these tailored experiences with Lightning apps and assign them by profile. But what about when you have more than one persona working together? This could happen, for example, when a case solver escalates to a case to an expert agent. That's when conditional visibility is great to use. It enables you to tailor what components are shown and hidden based on a set of rules you define. So that same work item is tailored for each persona that works on it. Lastly, when creating these experiences, meet with your users early and often. Get their feedback so you can be sure you're building an experience that's going to help them be more productive. And it's important for them to be productive because oftentimes service agents are measured on how long it takes them to respond to a customer. That's why they need to be able to dive right in as soon as they can, as soon as a case is routed to them. And the best way to ensure that key information like contact and case details are always visible are with pinned regions. Pinned regions enable you to keep information pinned in one place, even as agents open up other tabs like knowledge articles. Additionally, people tend to read from left to right. So keep that critical information on the left so they can read it, get up to speed, and jump into the conversation in the center of the screen. Another thing service agents are measured on is the time it takes for them to resolve cases. So you can help agents meet their goals by giving them contextual details like related records, help right within their workspace, and enable a few time-saving shortcuts for them. So we have a few out-of-the-box components that really help build this context. So let's dive into a demo and take a look. Here we're in the Lightning App Builder, and like we said, it's important to create personalized experiences for each persona. So let's walk through a case page layout we've created for the case solver persona, using the best practices we just discussed. Like I mentioned, pinned regions keep the content visible even if users open up different tabs. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see that we have pinned a pinned region on this layout. All of our different page layouts can be accessed in the Object Manager. When choosing layouts, we encourage you to engage your users and test out a few different layouts to see what works best for them. Back to the page, we want case solvers to jump right in, know who they're talking to and what they're talking about. So we recommend putting contact and case details in the pinned region on the left. So you can see that we have the contact details on the top left and the case details right below that. And we've done that using the related record component. And you can see the configuration we've used to do that. Now, remember when we said sometimes more than one persona needs to work on an item? Well, let's take a look at the left here. See that little orange icon? Well, what that means is that we have opportunities related lists that's set only to be visible if it meets certain criteria, which is configured on the right. In this example, if this case is escalated, meaning it goes to an expert agent, this opportunities related list will be visible because details like that are important for expert agents and tier 2 agents, but it might be distracting for a case solver. Now, another great component to surface details quickly is the highlights panel. And we placed that at the top center of the screen. It provides details of the record and also surface quick actions in an easy to find place. Below that, let's talk about tabs. So we want to maximize real estate on the page. We want to give agents all the details they need in one place, but we don't want them to have a cluttered workspace. So we recommend using tabs and accordions throughout your layout. You can see we've added tabs in the center of the screen as well as the right side of the screen. Bringing our attention to the center of the screen, we recommend keeping the conversation central. So we've added the chatter feed on the first tab so that agents can see the last response from the customer or another agent on the case. Now, for real-time conversations like chat or mobile messaging, you would replace this feed with the chat transcript component, and it can add even more context about the last interaction with the customer using the past chats component. Now, let's take a look at the right-hand side of the screen over here at this engagement tab. What you see here is the Community 360 component. And if you have a customer community, this is a must-have. I cannot stress that enough. Community 360 gives agents a window into a customer's activity within your self-service portals, like what articles they've read. So agents can be proactive in not telling a customer to try something twice. Now let's go over to this guidance tab over here. And we have a few contextual tools here. The first one is knowledge. Knowledge takes all the articles your expert agents are creating in the knowledge base and surfaces the ones that are likely to have the answers they need. And below that, we've added the guided action list. The guided action list surfaces flows that you've built in the Lightning Flow Builder. And what these flows do is they walk agents step by step through processes that either help them solve cases or gather more information. And you can access these and set up in the Lightning Flow Builder to create them for your agents. All right, so we've personalized this experience for the case solver. We've created easy access to critical details right here and added a bunch of context and help. But what about those shortcuts we talked about? Vince, can you tell us a bit more about macros?
Absolutely. Thanks, Corby. That was amazing. So hi, folks. Again, my name is Vincent Pham, Product Manager here in Service Cloud. And I'm going to let you in on a secret. Macros is one of Service Cloud's most overlooked features. Now, we look at usage patterns, right? And for our customers that use macros, they use the heck out of them. Some customers use hundreds and thousands of macros. But why is that? So it's a combination of macros being awesome for automatically automating frequently used workflows, but also creating a centralized best practices for agents to do. However, the reason why we're on this call is to make this more available and more well understood so that you guys can take advantage of this as well. So for the folks who aren't familiar with what a macro is, it's a way to define a set of instructions so that an agent can click on one button to run a bunch of tasks. This was originally available back in Classic on a handful of standard objects, but with Lightning, this is available on both standard objects and also custom objects. But even better, we've totally taken the experience of building a macro and taken it so that not only admins, but anyone can make them. Literally anyone can make them with just a simple point and click, and you'll be able to create macros on your own. So customers ask me, what are some good ideas for macros? How do I get started, right? I'll share some ideas here, but I highly recommend you go back to your service reps and ask them directly. Ask them, what are your top 5 common actions? What are your top tickets that you face each and every single day? Once you get a good idea of what they are, dig a little bit deeper and figure out, number 1, what needs to happen? What sort of information is needed? Number 2, who needs to be involved? Do I need to send a communication to a customer, to another service rep? And then 3, how do you string all these things together so that they happen all with one click? Once you figure that out, you want to create a macro. So let's look at some commonly used use cases, right? You know, in Service Cloud, we deal with cases. So frequently, everyone will come up with a scenario where they need to update a case, triage a case, escalate a case to another rep, or as much as we love our customers, sometimes after we provide them some help, they're not so responsive. So you end up having to create a macro to automatically string all these actions together to easily close a case. Also, macros are really, really helpful for shooting out quick replies. So while an agent is in the moment trying to troubleshoot an issue, if they need to shoot out an email, shoot out a community post or a social post, you could use a macro to do that, to just launch the action and stay in the flow of work. Similar to that idea, you can also use macros to schedule follow-up tasks, things to do later on, whether it's a phone call or a follow-up task. So what I'll do is I'll walk you through a demo where we'll take a lot of these things all into one. I'll first review how you set up a macro in the first place. After I do that, I'll execute a macro. And then thirdly, I'll show some neat features around how you can share this using foldering. Okay, so starting from ground zero, you'll want to go into server setup, and you'll want to define your macros to have a certain sharing model. In this case here, I've got this set up for a private. You can set it up publicly as well, but I'll explain why private is a good way to start. Next, you'll want to create a profile or a perm set, so you've got standard object permissions. In this case here, for the demo, I'll have it set up so that users can read, create, edit, or delete. Next, after you do that, you'll want to go into your application. So we'll be using the Lightning Console app. You'll go into the utility items and simply add macros so that it shows up in the footer component. Once you do that, the last thing you'll want to do is go into macro settings and just enable share and organize macros and folders. So you'll see this this folder functionality I'm about to show you soon. That's it. So once you've got that enabled, I'm now logged in, I'm an agent, I'm looking at the Lightning Service Console app, I'm on my home page. Down in the bottom left, since you've added it to the app manager, you will see macros. You can click on it. Another nice trick here is you can just click M, and it will show up as well. Notice that this page doesn't support macros. That's what you will see by default when you're on a page that doesn't have macros enabled. So we'll jump over to a case, and you'll see that the message goes away, and you see a bunch of macros down here instead. When you click on this icon over here, you can see recent macros, which is my top 10, top 12. You can click all to see all the macros I've got access to. And when you click on one, you'll see a description of what the macros is. So as a best practice, I recommend that in your description, you list out what the actual actions are. So in this case here, for proposed resolution, it's a 3-step macro. So in this case, let's jump into a macro that really strings together all those 3 use cases together. So take a look at left VM, which is for left voicemail. Consider the scenario like this. This customer submitted a case. They're having issues with the product. It's malfunctioning. They have a lot of questions. Do I need an upgrade? What should I do? And they explicitly asked to make a call. So what frequently happens when you do this is sometimes you make a call and no one's there. You need to drop a voicemail. You want to update the case status to show that you're working on it. Again, you want to log a call to show that you've left a voicemail. You also want to send an email to the customer letting them know that I tried to reach out to you. And then lastly, you'll want to set some sort of reminder to call again maybe tomorrow. So I'll show you what it looks like to actually run this macro first. You'll just want to click on Run Macro, and off and away we go. You'll see all the actions being checkmarked down here as we're doing them. And then when you're done, we're back here on the home page. And when I go over here to my today's tasks, I'll actually be able to see that last task as well. So I can go back to that case and see all the activity that just happened. So looking at the timeline, you see that just now I updated the case status from new to working. I left a log a call saying I left a voicemail, we'll call again tomorrow, updated the case status, sent out an email template, and then scheduled a follow-up to do. That was just one click, and I can't count how many clicks I just automated. So let's jump to the next part of the demo and show how you actually do this on your own. Let's take this exact macro and jump straight into the instructions. And since you see all the details here, I'll cheat by just deleting them all. And just kind of pretend we're starting from ground zero. Okay, so once you're in the macro builder, and let me zoom in also so you can see a little bit better. All you need to do is go over here on the left and start clicking and doing what you want to do. So the very first thing we said is let's update the case. So I'll go in here, change the status, make sure it's marked as working, hit save. This submit action, by the way, just as a heads up, when you see this icon, it means you're making a submit or a change against the database. So just keep that in mind. You can set up your users so that either they have access to this, or if you're concerned you want them to use macros only to automate but not actually do any actions, you also have a permission set to modify that too. Next thing we'll want to do is let's go ahead and log a call, go in, change the subject. We left a voicemail. Let's go into the comments box, say left a voicemail, we'll try again tomorrow. And let's hit save as well. Next thing is let's shoot out that email to the customer so that they are aware. So there's two ways you can do this. You can share an email template, but I'll actually show a different way. You also have access to quick text as well. Quick text, in other words, are just pre-canned responses, and they're great because you can use them across different channels. It doesn't have to be email only, it could be chat, it could be a lot of different places. So I've created a quick text here that takes all these merge fields in and automatically create this nice personalized response. You can also go in here and modify the from list to make sure it is being sent from the proper email to case address, make sure I'm properly BCC'd in, and then go down to the bottom and hit send. Last thing we want to do is create a task. So this is the follow-up task. Let's go into the subject, make sure that I do a callback tomorrow. And then for the due date, check this out. Not only are you able to select absolute dates, but you can select a relative one as well. So in this case, I want to make a callback tomorrow. And everything else looks good, so I'll hit save and go back to the top, hit save, and there you go. That's all it takes to create a macro. As you can see, if you can do it, you can just create a macro. It's that simple. It's just point and click. Oh yeah, and before you actually do this, make sure you go back and actually run it to make sure everything's working. I highly recommend that too. Make sure you test your stuff, and fingers crossed, if I didn't do anything wrong, it will just work again. So let's try this again. Okay, looking good, looking good, looking great. Oh, and I forgot one last part. This is a good tip I wanted to let you folks know. For the folks who paid attention, the first time I went through this, the case closed and I went back to my homepage. This last time it didn't. Why is that? So actually check out in your macro builder at the bottom, you have this nice little feature that you can actually use to add close tab instruction. So if you're in console, you can actually use this as well so that you don't, if you don't want to, you can just close the tab. So go back to your previous tab. So keep that in mind. Okay, so lastly, I mentioned private sharing and foldering, right? One thing I hear quite a lot is like, well, I don't want to make things public because things kind of get out of control. I don't want all my reps to just create macros on the fly. So what I recommend is start with a private model and use foldering so that you can share out macros once you identify some really great ones, right? So what I have, for example, here is another rep on the right. Since it's private sharing, he doesn't see any of these macros, right? He doesn't see any of them because he hasn't created any yet. But then as the user over here, once I go to the macro, I can actually go and put it into a folder. So this macro is in a folder called Team Macros. And once you go to that folder, and keep in mind, folders can be nested. You can go a couple levels deep. You can then define sharing rules for this folder of team macros. Right now, it's set so only I can access Vincent Pham, but I can add that other user to access it now as well. So Vince Service is the other one, hit save, and now when I go over here and refresh the screen, I'll be able to see the macro as well. There you go. So all three macros on that folder are shared to him, and now he can run them as well. So you really have nothing to fear. You can have your reps create them in a private manner. They can see them. Once they get really, really good, or you find great best practices, you can up-level them and make it available to everyone else. All right, so just to recap a couple of the awesome things you guys saw. You saw foldering, which is a great way to organize and also have sharing model in place so that you can share out best practices. You saw relative dates, so you can set a follow-up tasks, not in an absolute manner, but relative in minutes, hours, or days from today. You also saw quick text, which is the ability to insert canned responses. And you could see that I pulled in all 3 use cases together to show that you can string all these quick actions together. But there's more. Coming soon, we're going to work and make available conditional macros. Conditional macros will make your macros even smarter because you'll be able to use logic to do things like, oh, if the case is this language, insert email template matching that language. That will cut down on a lot of your email templates, a lot of your quick checks, so that your macros can consolidate and have a lot of really smart interactions. So again, go back to your reps, ask them what are their top 5 pain points, come up with a story on what you can automate, and you'll be good to go. All right, back to you, Leanne.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vince. Thank you, Porvi. Those were excellent demos and a ton of great information. I'm sure admins are very excited to get started with delivering some of that awesome productivity to their users. I especially love the insight about designing for personas and some of those popular use cases where admins can start implementing macros. I totally agree. This is an underused and powerful feature that all admins should be thinking about. So I know all of our admins on the phone are excited to get started with these tips and continue learning. There are some great resources available to all of our Service Cloud admins, starting with the Trailblazer community group. This is a good place to connect with other Service Cloud admins, product teams, and experts. You can ask questions, learn how other admins are using these features, and more. Trailhead is where we continue getting hands-on with all of these features and earning badges. Check out the Service Cloud Specialist Super Badge, which covers multiple feature areas of Service Cloud. Super badges are challenging, and they're a great place to test your knowledge. And visit us on admin.salesforce.com to get hands-on with some great lightning resources for Service Cloud admins. Now let's get to some questions from the Trailblazer Community Admin Webinar Group. So one of the questions that I saw that I think is really important to start with is, are macros, Vince, available only for Service Cloud and case-related operations? We have a question from Valerie that she says she could see a lot of customer-facing, non-support related folks wanting to use macros.
Yeah, great question. So absolutely not. Macros are available for not just Service Cloud, but Sales Cloud. Keep in mind, a big promise of Lightning is that it's all one platform. So macros can be used on standard objects like leads, contacts, accounts, and also custom objects, and by no means are Service Cloud only. So you can use them all over the place.
Awesome. And so just to build on that question, Amanda asked another question about macros in our group. She's wondering what the difference is between using a macro versus flow or process builder. And I think this is a really important clarification for how admins should be thinking about all of the different automation tools. So macros, flow, process builder.
Yeah, that's a deep one too. So the 3 being macros, flow, and process builder. So macros strings together a bunch of quick actions. Think of it that way. It's a UI level. You want an agent to initiate it, and you want an agent to be able to control it and define it. Process Builder, I think of as more back-end. So with Process Builder, once a case gets updated, you can fire a lot of back-end processes that you won't even see on the UI. And then with Flow, I think of Lightning Flow as a way to provide prescriptive actions on what to do. So when they receive a case, depending on the case shape, you might want to have a list of flows recommended to them via the action list component, which they can click on, which then will walk the agent through various steps to troubleshoot.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like I know it's a big question, but I feel like it's good for, as admins think about adding this to their toolkit, to think about how they kind of compare all these different tools for their users. Porvi, we had a question from Aaron Hensley around what determines which knowledge articles appear in that related list on the case. Like, how do admins kind of control that, or what are the definitions that control that?
I'll take this one too. So the knowledge articles will show up in 2 different ways. One, anything that gets attached will show up in the knowledge articles related list for your case. But if you're talking about which knowledge articles get shown in the knowledge component, like you saw in the demo, it's really a factor of like what's being used. So there's some logic and some intelligence built in based off of what's being attached, based off of word match with the case, that will recommend a top set of 10 that you'll see in the knowledge component.
Awesome. Thank you for taking that. We do have some great questions in the community group, or in the Trailblazer group. Don't worry, we will get to those questions throughout after this webinar ends, but we have concluded with our time. So that concludes the prepared content for this webinar. We will be going through the Trailblazer group, so keep asking those questions. And we really want to hear from you. We do these webinars for you. We want to make sure that we're hearing your feedback. So please take a moment to complete the very short survey that you'll be getting. And the recording and slides will be available online. And thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Porvi. Thank you, Vince. And we will see you all next time.